I'm going to talk about our training suggestions, and so basically how we train with our patients, what games we use, and what general approach and mindset we have how we train. And I want to start with my background as a sports scientist. So I've trained with a lot of athletes, and I do a lot of different sports, and there are two basic things that I always remember, and also when I do a brain training, doesn't matter if a physical workout or a mental workout, I always want to create routines. So this can be in a warm-up, this can be in a cool down, but this can also be a steady state when you train. But same time, I also want to keep your body guessing. So always mix in new exercises, new inputs, stuff like that. And for me, if we want to keep it simple, those two things go hand in hand. We want to create routines and at the same time keep the body guessing. So change will happen. I will talk about two different training protocols, and one will be a focus training, also so-called SMR training. With a focus training, how we create a training session, we first start with a routine, and I will go into details in a minute. After a part in the training, in the neurofeedback, biofeedback training session, we go into a challenge mode. So there we will change the feedback medium, so the feedback game, into a more challenging mindset state you need to get into. And then we want to exit, or we want to quit the training or end the training with some fun, and where you kind of let go and where you enjoy the rest of the training. I will come to that in a minute. So just to get you on board, very simple. Usually focus training in most cases is done on the C position, so C3, C4, or if you have a one channel training on ZZ. And usually what we want to do is we want to inhibit theta, in some cases also alpha training. This is for a different video if you want to go into details on that. And we want to reward low beta, so get into this relaxed state of focus without high beta, so no hyperarousal. First, we start with routines, and our routines is usually a game that has a visual feedback. So you watch a game on a screen, or you use a beamer if you have a bigger wall, and we same time use audio feedback. And so we use a simple game like the Meditation Master. The goal is to, if you get in this SMR mode, so in a relaxed, focused state, the monk goes up. And same time, I open up the media center, and in the background, I'll play a Spotify, iTunes, Tidal, radio, whatever, audio feedback, so music that my client can choose. And when the monk goes down, the volume will be turned down. And when the monk goes up, the volume will be turned up. I personally always do the monk in combination with audio feedback. It can be different songs, but this is a routine where the brain realizes this is my warm-up, this is arriving in the training, and all I need to do is get my brain in the right states. And I do this for 5 to 10 minutes. Obviously, you can choose a different game. I will come to that in a minute. Next part after a routine will be a challenge. And a challenge for me implies that you don't just play a game with your thoughts, so you try somehow to get into a relaxed, focused state. You also need visual feedback, and I would suggest to play a game that the client uses a controller with. So part of the game you have active control, but you get a visual feedback. In this example with Dragon Bay, you control the dragon, so if it goes forward, or if it spits fire, or if it jumps with the controller, so it's active control, something that you're used to in your daily life. And but same time, the blocks appear or don't appear according to the feedback, so if you are in this SMR mode or not. And same time the cubes, so the blocks, start to shake or not shake depending on the feedback. So part is played with your thoughts or with your brain activity, and part is played with the active control via a controller. Obviously you can also combine this with sound feedback, so play Spotify or something in the background and have the media center working. I will come to different games, and there's also a game I prefer a lot besides the Dragon Bay is Train Your Brain, where you really have to solve cognitive tasks like counting, like memorization, and there also you can enter your answer via a controller. So this would be the part where we want to challenge and trigger some cognitive performance without hyper-arousing or without drifting off. And then I call it fun part. I actually think training your brain is always fun, but then I would highly recommend a visual feedback on a screen and an audio feedback. So where you watch something and the volume gets turned down or up. So you would use the media center again. And I would play, and with the media center, since we influence the entire system sound and we can put a dimmer on top of whatever we like, we can watch whatever we want. So you can watch state-of-the-art stuff like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus is a new streaming service that has a lot of nice comics that is good for kids to get their attention, but also watch some favorite YouTube videos or Sky, so some sports. I think it's important not to overdo it, over-engineer, and always try to get something documentation where they need to learn some stuff or memorize or have a different language where they need to pay attention. Yes, if you want to get them into a focused state, but always remember the brain is always working because there is a dimmer and the volume getting turned up or down. So even though it's very simple movie that is maybe not meant to learn or pay attention like TED Talks or something, your brain is playing a game without knowing the rules. So this is something where we want to have some fun, and now maybe a strange word at first, we want distraction for your consciousness. Because with all the games, for example, the meditation master in the beginning as a routine, the challenge where we play Dragon Bay or Train Your Brain, you kind of tend to think, hey, I kind of focused there, why didn't it work? So you try to beat the game or to trick the rules maybe, or you think I played by the rules, I focus, why is it not working? But once you watch a movie, your consciousness that always thinks along and tries to challenge yourself and say, well, I did the right job, why is it not working? Kind of gets distracted because you just at some point want to follow the movie. And this is where your subconscious can take over and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm still guessing why the movie is turning black, so the dimmer gets dark, and why the volume is getting turned down or up. So part of your brain, the passive regulation processes, they still work. And this is, I think, a very powerful tool to use movies because your conscious is kind of taking a break. This is why we call it a fun part. And this I would do for 10 to 20 minutes in the end. So to summarize, I think a good SMR training, so focus training, should consist in best case scenario of routine, a challenge, and then some fun or a movie. So let's dive deeper into details. What games do we actually in practice use? This video is from May 2020, so maybe there will be more games in the future, hopefully. And so as of today, for routines, you can basically use any game you play without a controller. So something that is meant to be a little, well, maybe boring or simple. It's meant to be simple. I always use the meditation master, and there are 3 different figures. So the monk, the sorcerer, and the lady getting up or down in the sand dunes. And so this is a simple game, and I always combine it with music. This is what I would recommend. But you can use, Flight Map, Circle Lake. Just try it out a little bit. As a challenge, I would do plus minus 10 minutes. There I would do maybe also a combination of 2 games. So for example, Dragon Bay, where you have some gamification, and then Train Your Brain, where you need to play memory, counting, some stuff. Or even you can have some school-related tasks, so some websites that have, according to the classes that people are in, have some schoolwork, and you put a dimmer on top of it. So when they focus, they can solve the task. When they don't focus, they don't see the task. You can combine this with music. Maybe sometimes it's too much. So if you do, for example, Train Your Brain, I would maybe not combine it with music. And then the fun part, or the subconscious part, 15 to 20 minutes a movie. So we kind of knock out the conscious and just let the brain take over. This is how we usually create or design a focus training and usually an SMR training. So to come back to my original start, we want to create routines so the brain realizes, here's the monk, so now is my brain training, so let's get it on and let's start. And then we want to keep the body guessing, so we sometimes play different games with a controller or also with no controller, and want to set some different inputs. Second training, the most common training besides an SMR training, is a relaxation training, or also called alpha training. And it's tough, I think, first of all, to describe, because with an SMR training you can tell your patient or your client, well, try to get into a calm focus without stressing too much but not drifting off. And everyone says, okay, yeah, like in school or at work when I'm answering emails. But how do you describe relaxation? And one approach, and there's tons of approaches, is trying to let go of control in a controlled manner. So don't try to outperform relaxation or in relaxation. So we want it at this point not just close our eyes and say, well, brain, please relax somehow. So we kind of try to get the patient or the client to the state where he knows, okay, I'm either stressed or my baseline is not even stressed, but still I want to let go and save some energy and regenerate and have some emotions being balanced. So this is why I tell them, in a controlled manner, lose control. And this is tough, I think, because if you lose too much control, you fall asleep. If you don't lose too much control, you overthink. And so usually a training that is linked to relaxation is a training that we do in the parietal lobe, so on P3, P4, or on PZ. And we want to inhibit high beta as an artifact control and to not have over arousal. And we want to reward alpha. Now there's different types of trainings where we just reward alpha 1, where we just reward alpha 2, or where we reward both. To keep it simple, alpha should increase, and theta, I think it's a little tricky, because some people say you need to inhibit theta to not fall asleep. Well, if you have, I will come to the part, your eyes closed and you listen to music, and the punishment for getting too tired is no music, you will still fall asleep. So on the other side, there is some training that rewards theta, to have an alpha theta training to get in an even deeper mode. But this is a video how we design a relaxation training in general. And let's assume we inhibit high beta and we reward alpha. Similar principle, in our practice, we start with a routine, and then we try to softly get into this state of just letting go in a controlled manner. So no real challenge. Letting go is a challenge itself, trust me. And as a routine, even though with alpha training, many people do a training with eyes closed straight away, I still like to let the patient arrive a little bit. So I still like to have some visual feedback, not the same when I use the monk for SMR training. I would choose a different game, maybe here the dragon falls or the waterfall, where you have some nice colors and some, a river going its way down. So it's a little calm situation that is trustful, and use some audio feedback. Here you can use some audio feedback, so some music that also has some singing involved and is, basic charts or something. But still, maybe I would choose a music that is rather calm or has some beats in it. So also some electronic beats that are calm though and don't change their tempo too much. So this I would also consider a routine, a warm-up, and arriving to the training that is just being controlled by the brain. So no controller needed, nothing like that. We also have some professional musicians that like to, rehearse their piece they're practicing right now. So they're used to this piece. And then the second part of the training comes into place. And this, we just use sound, and usually we then use eyes closed, or we at least recommend eyes closed, because when you close your eyes, you have a peak in alpha. So usually there's more alpha when you close your eyes. Obviously you can, yes, fall asleep more easily when you close your eyes, but just to get into this alpha mode, closing your eyes especially when you have a training during the day where you usually don't close your eyes for a longer time, will calm you down and relax you. But it's just a recommendation. And the simplest way is, I know you have a lot of EEG data and amplitudes that you can watch. Ask the client and say, do you feel happier with your eyes open or eyes closed? Some people like to have their eyes open or half open and just watch some nice pictures or some animations. But usually people want to close their eyes. And as a feedback, obviously, then we use audio feedback. So you can also use some streaming services. And there are two possible ways, and I would let the person try out both. Music with calm beats, maybe no singing when you have your eyes closed. On the other side, this is why I said maybe no singing. Some people like to have a voice to follow, not to fall asleep. So if you have a person that says, I'm already almost falling asleep, maybe then choose something that has some soft singing involved so they can follow the voice. But if you follow too much a voice, then on the other side you will maybe focus too much. So here again, ask the client. You have a subject sitting there, not an object. And I would choose playlist that has the same style within the songs, so not a random playlist with the favorite songs that have, you know, some fast beats and then some slow beats. So choose a playlist that has, you know, the same kind of music style in it. Secondly, you can also try some podcasts or some audiobook. And here I said audiobook for children, because when you have an, you know, complex story or podcast that is maybe too intellectual, or maybe it's too complicated about science, then you will try to focus again. So what I sometimes do with grown-ups, I give them an audiobook that is meant for children. So it's very simple, you know, it's, you know, at the end there will be a happy end and everyone will survive and it will all be good. But it's simple to follow, but still you have some story to listen to, and just let go your thoughts a little bit. And this, I mean, it really depends. To get in this regeneration, calmness, creativity mode, you can do it for 20 plus minutes. Usually people need more than 10 minutes to really get into this relaxed state. And it depends how long you want to do the session. If you want to skip the routine part and just getting to this letting go, regeneration, calmness part, you can do 40 minutes straight just with eyes closed. I would still, though, advise to keep a close eye. If, you know, alpha is dramatically dropping and theta is running up, then it's an indication for either very deep relaxation or falling asleep. And the person itself has to figure out what is a nice optimum. I'm always looking for a training optimum, not maximum. So it's not about who has the most calmness minutes is the best in regeneration and relaxation. It's always when you feel like this was the right amount of having my eyes closed and calming down. So here I follow the path of a tiny little routine and then combined with this letting go moment. And the routine, as I said, 5 to 10 minutes. You can also use the meditation master, maybe with a different person. It has 3 different players with a different player, so it's not linked to focus and relaxation, the monk. I like to use Dragonfall or a Circle Lake, and in combination with some music to set the mood. And then letting go, 20 plus minutes with music, eyes closed is recommended, but ask the person. And so with relaxation, you should create routines and at some point keep the body guessing. What do I mean with that? As a closing, when you keep the body guessing in the SMR training, I want to challenge. So I want to play new games, and I want to, you know, give different angles to the feedback. So there will be always a focus, and the people will not get bored or annoyed, because usually with kids you do an SMR training, and so you want to keep them entertained so they keep coming. When you do a relaxation training with eyes closed, it's tough to do this with kids because they cannot keep their eyes closed for a very long time period. So usually, again, this is just, you know, the most cases, with grown-ups, when you do an eyes closed relaxation training, I would recommend to get the body or to get the brain some sort of not always guessing what is happening, so not always playing different games or playing different sort of music. So if the person says, you know what, I have some nice calm electronic beats that are not too fast and not too hyper, then stick with it for a couple times. So not over engineer and not think, oh, every session I need a new entertainment. Relaxation is different because, as I said, it's a in a controlled manner, losing control. So at some point you can say, okay, first 2 or 3 sessions we do an audiobook, we do a podcast, and then some calm beats, and then you should kind of settle on one thing and stick to it 5 to 10 sessions, and then say, hey, today maybe you want to try different music, or you want to listen to some different stuff. This is okay, but here I would be a little careful and kind of do or aim at the long shot. So I hope I could help you out a little bit, and if you have questions, just let me know.